properly introduce myself as well. So my name is John Cho. I am currently the VP of Marketing at Kaia Foundation. So I've been working with Kaia and the Clayton side of things since 2019. I've been around for a while. Previous to my blockchain experience, I led data and platform at LG globally and also worked in the energy industry as well. So I've been around in blockchain, also especially on the Kaia and Clayton side for a while. And I've just been kind of like floored by the, I guess, the scale and speed of maturity and development that we're seeing in this industry, but also not just the industry, but just overall. So the point of my speech today is going to be this. Following myself, we're going to have Benji from the line next side deliver more deliver more specifics around the actual infrastructure, the mini dApps you can expect. Before that, what I want to do is I want to provide you with some context. I want to provide you with background information on why we're doing this. Because I think it's always really important to have context in order to really understand something, right? So my job today through this presentation is going to be to provide you with context on why we're actually doing what we're doing. Now, since COVID, post-COVID, the world has changed so much, right? So not just on a Web3, not just from a Web3 perspective, but quote-unquote Web2 perspective as well. The traditional legacy industries, we've seen a massive shift happening in terms of user behavior, in terms of marketing optimization, user acquisition, and so on and so forth. And largely, this shift and this change has been accelerating and happening much more quickly and much more exponentially since COVID. Now, I just want to kind of discuss this with you guys first, and especially if you have experience with marketing for traditional institutions, like on the enterprise side. I guess you all guys remember back in 2000 when the actual digital industry, like the dot-com boom, started happening, it was kind of like a spray and pray kind of strategy when it comes to marketing. So you would have display ad networks across all these websites. You would bid for a display ad position, and just the objective there was to gain and obtain as much reach as possible. But as the IT industry kind of matured and evolved, we got social media, right? So Facebook, Instagram, and so on. And that brought in the era of hyper-personalization. Now that, through Google and Facebook and any other kind of social media network, we had access to a ton of personal data. So now we could really granularly use segmentation strategies to really target specific individuals based on their likes and actions and so on and so forth. So this was the era of hyper-personalization. So again, if you've been involved in marketing for a while, you understand that there was this need for performance, performance marketing. So you would target specific individuals and so on and so forth. Post-COVID, since COVID, we've seen a shift in terms of marketing strategies and marketing effectiveness. So this personalization, this hyper-targeting, is actually, the ROI isn't there as it used to be. There's been this shift towards community. And by community, what I mean is focus on solving for influence and facilitating organic engagement. So in the past, if I was a car manufacturer, I would target somebody who maybe belonged to, who liked car posts or, who liked, posts with BMW, whatever, that stuff. Now what I do is I target car influencers who post about, who make content about cars because they have their own community. And getting my message kind of communicated and facilitated through that I guess, KOL, for the lack of a better term, is a lot more effective now. So we're seeing this shift from brands going from hyper-personalization to targeting communities. Again, that community could be around a specific KOL and so on and so forth. So there's this shift in marketing kind of strategies and optimization. Also, just wanted to kind of talk about this as well. Like, and bear with me, I'm going to get to a point very soon. From a user perspective, there's been a shift in terms of like, user behavior as well. Back in the day, like, when like the early .com days when you had Amazon and eBay, a lot of the user behavior oriented around reason to believe. You had to give them a reason to believe. So that's when like branding worked, like brand power, brand awareness, and so on. So again, to take cars as an example, so back like in this generation of user behavioral kind of like, user behavioral, perspectives, people would just buy like, for example, like a Mercedes-Benz because just they knew the brand and they trusted the brand. It gave them something to believe. But as social media kind of like picked up steam, like people found a new reason, a new kind of like objective, a new need when it came to like engaging with brands and so on. So they wanted a reason to share. They wanted to engage with brands that would allow them to kind of like engage their social media friends, allow them to like share more stuff. But these days, there's been another shift in terms of user behavior with Gen Z, and now what people want to do with brands is they want a reason to play, right? It's no longer about just like, giving them a reason to believe around like, brand weight, brand strength, brand awareness. It's no longer enough to kind of like give them a reason to share, like giving them cool content and stuff. They actually want to now engage and like, facilitate conversation with brands. They want to be able to like kind of play with brands. That's kind of like the need that we've seen from a user perspective. So what is the point of discussing all of this? Well, I wanted to kind of like really like, hit it home and like, iterate and reiterate the point that there's this shift in terms of like the marketing infrastructure landscape and this shift in terms of user behavior. Now, also with that, from a Web3 perspective, especially like, I'm sure everyone's aware a few months ago, Trump was elected in the States, right? And there's been this massive sentiment shift in terms of regulatory landscapes across the world. Because what we've found is like a lot of the time, especially like countries in Southeast Asia, East Asia, and even Europe, kind of like tend to look to the US for guidance in terms of like, regulatory frameworks and so on when it comes to crypto. But it's like obviously like AML laws, most of that comes, most of those guidelines come from like the US. So with Trump's more bullish stance on crypto, we've seen this kind of like, shift in sentiment across Asia as well. In terms of like, regulatory clarity and so on. And also, so because of that regulatory clarity, we're also seeing a shift in sentiment from legacy industries and enterprises. They're now realizing, oh, you know what, maybe it's now time to kind of like dabble our feet in Web3 and crypto tech. And also, we're still early, technically. We're still very, very early because there's this kind of like data set that I remember, but right now, of like, if you compare like, the population that uses digital services, say that's 100, we've only been able to onboard like 3% of that 100, right? So we're still very early. So people are now still looking for that first mover advantage. So there's this massive kind of like confluence happening at the moment right now. And this is where kind of like our story like really begins. So like I said, I've been with Kaia and the team that is behind Kaia for about the last 6 years. So originally we were established as a wholly owned subsidiary of KakaoTalk, which is the dominant and primary messenger service in South Korea back in 2018. So like in terms of some specific kind of metrics, KakaoTalk, again, basically has like a 98% market share in South Korea. It's very similar to the situation of Line in Japan, Taiwan, and Thailand. So I don't need to kind of like talk about these, because I think you guys are already very much aware. But one thing I do want to highlight and elaborate on and reiterate for you guys is that if you kind of like just take China and WeChat out of the equation for a bit and just look at what KakaoTalk and Line covers, is KakaoTalk and Line combined covers like 80% of all digital consumption and spending in Asia. That's massive, right? That is a massive user base. And it's unique in the sense that you don't really see these kind of user bases with such a high level of ARPU as well. Because, these users also spend money. They spend a lot of money online. So with this kind of like confluence of like, external like, influences around like the regulatory landscape, changes in user behavior, changes in sentiment, and also there was another catalyst earlier this year, where we saw the merging of Clayton, my previous kind of layer 1, and Fincher to form Kaia. So it's been like a year of confluence. So we thought, why don't we leverage this confluence to really kind of like differentiate ourselves? And we thought the timing was perfect. So Kaia, again, as formed between a merger of Fincher and Clayton, we have now been like positioning ourselves within this narrative as Asia's super app chain. Because when you think about it, there is no other super app chain or super app infrastructure out there that has its own layer 1. So we've kind of been positioning ourselves to leverage our relationship with KakaoTalk and Line. And our mission is super clear. I mean, it's not a simple mission, but it's a super clear mission. So in terms of number of registered users, KakaoTalk and Line Message combined, I think they have more than 1 billion registered users. But in terms of MAU, we're looking at around 250 million. So the mission is clear. We want to leverage every aspect of that super app infrastructure as much as possible to onboard 250 million high-spending, high-value users onto Kaia. That's our mission. And how are we going to do this? How are we going to like complete this mission? Well, let's kind of like take a step back and look at the kind of mini app infrastructure and ecosystem out there already existing. So over the last year or so, there's been this growing narrative around mini app experiences. So it's not just limited to Ton and Telegram. There are also other layer 1s and also other like infrastructure and platform providers that are exploring this mini app kind of like approach to Web3 services. And this mini app approach actually started with WeChat. WeChat has had a really robust and vibrant mini app ecosystem for a few years now. And it's a massive cash cow for WeChat, obviously, right? But not on the Web3 side, on the Web2 side. So what better way is there to leverage that super app infrastructure than to launch our own mini app infrastructure online, the biggest messenger environment and ecosystem in Asia? But not just to launch any mini app infrastructure, but to really differentiate ourselves when we do that as well. So we have 3 kind of like differentiation points that we've been kind of pushing in terms of like our narrative and our positioning. So first and foremost, UX UI. With the existing super app infrastructure, there's still this kind of like bottleneck when it comes to like onboarding more mainstream users or non-crypto natives. And that bottleneck, I think, heavily lies on the UX UI aspect. So that's something that we've kind of like wanted to really improve on for a while. And I'm sure when Benji's on stage, he'll kind of like elaborate on that a little bit more. And also, the reason why there's so much interest between like Web3 builders for mini app infrastructure is the distribution aspect, right? So Ton and Telegram has been this amazing bootstrapping touch point for our users. So they launch within 3 months, they have like 1 million users, right? But the problem there is it's not sustainable. We haven't seen many mini apps. There are mini apps out there, but haven't seen many mini apps that are able to kind of maintain and sustain that initial bootstrapped user base. So what our kind of lessons learned from observing all of this was to have a distribution infrastructure that is very much focused on the acquisition aspect. So in order to have an effective distribution infrastructure with effective and optimal acquisition aspects, you need a really streamlined and effective discovery touch point. So that's been kind of like one of our key strategies. And also, basically at the end of the day, the biggest difference that we've kind of realized when it comes to engaging our users online compared to maybe users on other existing mini app infrastructures is the actual user behavior. Now, there aren't any like actual concrete figures out there, but my understanding is, for example, on Ton and Telegram, 50% of the user base there is are located in like India and Africa. And a lot of the user behaviors that we've kind of like assessed and analyzed is a lot of those users come to mini apps to earn. Basically, they're going there to earn money, incentives, and so on. But with Line users, they're not used to that incentive structure. These users aren't familiar with like play to earn. These users are users that pay money to play. These users pay money to win. So pay to win, kind of like mini apps. They pay money for experiences. So the user behavior is like 180 degrees, like completely different. And that's something that we've had to kind of like take into consideration a lot, because Web3 builders are very much focused on implementing incentive structures to onboard users. But for Line users, they don't care too much about incentive structures. For them, it's about the actual experience. So for example, if you're talking games, they want games that are fun. So that's been kind of like the big kind of like shift in terms of philosophy as well for us. So it's those three aspects that we've kind of like really been like working on to differentiate ourselves with. So again, this whole like mini app infrastructure, like out there with like what people are doing, UX UI is still an issue. So I just wanted to like quickly kind of like talk about how we've like used our experience in the past to like really like extract some lessons learned to improve the UX UI. So on the Kakao Talk side, like for example, we've actually had a crypto wallet embedded into the Kakao Talk ecosystem since 2019. And then you ask yourself, so what is a differentiated kind of like point if you have a crypto wallet embedded into a messenger service? Well, obviously, UX UI. So we were very much focused on making sure that UX UI was seamless with the existing messenger UX UI. And also, no need to worry about your private keys, no need to worry about your seed phrase, just tap your friend and boom, you can send crypto. So that kind of like user experience as well was really important for us. On the Line side also, they've had a bunch of pick and shovel products integrated into the Line Messenger ecosystem for a few years now. And one thing I want to highlight is this. So you guys are probably aware, but in Japan, Line actually has their own centralized exchange called BitMax, not to be confused with BitMEX. And the really kind of like differentiated experience here is that this exchange service is seamlessly integrated into the Line ecosystem and environment. So basically, your fiat to crypto on-ramp and off-ramp experience, or crypto to crypto like trading experience, is super seamless. The UX UI is very seamlessly integrated into the existing environment, which makes it very familiar to users who aren't familiar, like who hadn't used like exchanges before. So we've had a ton of learnings, and we wanted to take all these learnings and apply that to our mini dApp infrastructure. So I'm gonna pause here and play a quick video. And once you see this video, I think you're all just gonna get it.
后台请帮我打开投影片
That's
第
okay.
19页。
Yeah, so the differentiation here is heavily on the UX UI. And again, I just want to elaborate the point. The reason why our core target audience is not your crypto native. I mean, obviously, yes, crypto natives will be a part of our like targeting kind of like and marketing initiatives, but they are not our kind of like main targets. Our main target is your grandmother, your mother, your sister, your father, your dad, and so on and so forth. So it was very important for us to make sure that UX UI was as familiar as possible as you can get. Now, I talked about how distribution is probably one of the key reasons why people are interested in this kind of like mini app infrastructure. But we wanted to have a distribution structure that was very much focused on acquisition. And in order to have a optimal and effective acquisition infrastructure, you need effective discovery touchpoints. So that is why, together with the mini dApp infrastructure, we'll also be launching our proprietary dApp portal. And this dApp portal is where all the discovery revolving around the mini dApps will actually happen. And obviously, it's a very typical app store experience, something that, again, your mother and your dad and your girlfriend, your sister, and so on will be very used to. And I'm sure Benji will kind of like deep dive into like, what the dApp portal will be like. So all of this is made possible because of our proprietary SDK that we developed together with LionNext, which is exclusive to LionNext and Kaia chain. And right now, access to the SDK is actually whitelisted. So if you want to build mini dApps on top of our infrastructure, you actually have to register for the time being through the Kaia Wave program. I'll talk about why we're so excited about this. So the reception has been overwhelming. And again, that's because people just get it. It's so clear what the advantages are going to be. It really is an unfair advantage from our perspective. So we've already have 700 plus teams that are looking to launch mini dApps online. This is public information already, but we're actually looking to launch the day one apps towards the end of January. So we're super excited about that as well. Now, I briefly, lightly touched on the fact that Kaia was formed as a result of a merge between Fincher and Clayton. But one thing that I do want to elaborate, and this is a question I get a lot often, is like, what is our relationship with Line? So what is Kaia's relationship with Line? Well, the governance proposal for the actual merge happened earlier this year, and it was a public governance vote. But with that public governance vote, we also wanted to make sure that there's a layer of risk hedging and confidence for our Kaia users. So this relationship that we have with Line is actually exclusive. So anything that Line does for the next 5 years in relation to Web3 and crypto will have to be exclusively with Kaia. And so that said, LionNext, Line's Web3 subsidiary, is not just about the mini dApp infrastructure. The mini dApp infrastructure is just a part of their business. So at the end of the day, LionNext is Line's Web3 products and services company. So they are also simultaneously, in addition to the mini dApps, working on standalone, full-scale Web3 services that will be launching exclusively on Kaia. And as you can see, everything from AI-based avatar social apps to K-pop related apps, these will be launched as standalone Web3 services on Kaia. And there is this one secret weapon I'm actually kind of really excited about, which is Line's IP. So my understanding is that Line's IP is very big in Taiwan. They will be launching a game on Kaia using Line's IP. Enough said, I think. Yeah, so just again wanted to provide some context before Benji comes up on stage to give you a more granular breakdown of what we're doing on why we're doing this from a macro perspective. So Kaia, if there's kind of one line description that I would give to you, is that it's Asia's Superapp chain. And it's a very familiar gateway to Web3 because it's something that you're already using every day. And we want to make sure we can leverage that to the fullest by expanding that reach across the full breadth of the Kaia ecosystem. All right, so I think I'm probably going to stop there a little bit and leave you with this video, which should nicely recap what I talked about today. Okay. So yeah, thank you. Just wanted to finish by saying I am very bullish on Line, very bullish on Kaia, super fucking bullish on Taiwan. Thank you very much.